Welcome back to another episode of Divinely Uninspired, episode 35. That's a lot of episodes. I don't know how about you, but I like that. I like that number, 35.
Yeah. Is that your age?
No. I am 36, so I was
Happy
35.
birthday.
No. You're not going to get away with that. I'm not going to tell you when it is so that you actually have to tell me on the day of. We're here, as always, with Jeremy.
Hello.
And with Penny.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, and you already heard the dulcet tones of Kyle.
Hi, friends.
Hello. So, did you guys did you watch the Super Bowl, or did you just kind of this is a Super Bowl that I don't think I could have cared less about.
Really?
So, yeah, didn't care about it.
Oh, I thought my husband's a big Eagles fan, so of course we watched. It was good, except for the last minute and 20 seconds.
Yeah. I watched it. I didn't care for you. I mean, I know I have friends that are fans of both teams. I don't really care for either team. So I didn't really care.
Big Chiefs fan, big Kansas City sports fan here. So it was a good night. It was fun.
Yeah. It was
good for you.
Good for you, Kyle.
I think that I didn't care. And then I wanted the Eagles to win the more I watched it. And then for it to end the way it ended, I think was just really sad. Yeah. I mean, I told Kyle this and any Chiefs fans, I think the Chiefs probably would have won anyway because they had so much momentum at that point. But for it to end on that, not end, but it kind of did on that call because then they could just run out the clock and kick the field goal. But you got to give them the chance to at least try to go down the score and kick a field goal and go into overtime. And, but Roger Goodell loves Patrick Mahomes, so it's all rigged. It's scripted.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
State Farm surely does.
I don't like Patrick Mahomes.
I don't either.
Why don't you like? I'm curious. I just want to hear. Not that I.
Because he listens to the podcast.
No, yeah, I don't care if he does. If you watch him next time, he makes facial gestures the entire time. Like he's just doing weird things with his mouth and I don't know. He's the new Tom Brady, and I never liked Tom Brady. That doesn't mean that I don't think I do think Patrick Mahomes is the best player in football. But that makes me not like him.
I get that.
Yeah. So I think it's like he's the new Tom Brady, and I never liked Tom Brady. I respect Tom Brady because I do think he was the best ever, but I don't like him. He doesn't play for my team. Why would I like the best player if he doesn't play for my team?
This is true.
Yeah.
Kyle, you don't even like him, do you?
Patrick Mahomes, yeah, I love him.
And he eats ketchup on everything, and ketchup's my least favorite condiment.
Not a fan of that.
He eats ketchup on everything?
Yeah, there's all these things about him eating ketchup on pretty much everything.
Ketchup on steak kind of guy.
Oh, how dare him.
So he's like an 8-year-old.
Tacos,
basically.
yeah.
Oh, no. They should strip him of all his achievements.
And it's not his fault, but his brother's really annoying too.
I mean, his wife.
Yeah.
Just throw her in there too.
Yeah.
But he's a Christian, so I guess I'm supposed to like him. Okay. I do think he's really good. I will give him that. He's really, really good. But that makes me like him even less.
So let's talk about what really mattered at the Super Bowl. What did you guys think of Rihanna's halftime? Rihanna.
Rihanna.
I've got a cousin. I got a cousin, and her name is Rihanna, and so I always get them confused. I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to call what.
Well, before we get there, let's go ahead and start with the beginning. I think Chris Stapleton, probably outside of Whitney Houston, did the best version of the national anthem I've ever heard.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was, he barely even moved his mouth, and his tone and his pitch, just beautiful. I loved it.
So outside of Whitney Houston, I would say he's done the best I've ever heard.
Yeah, I agree.
Very talented gentleman.
Yeah.
Love him.
Kentucky boy.
Yeah, he is.
That's right.
Rihanna, props to her because I didn't know she was pregnant. Because
Nobody
the whole
did.
thing was weird.
The whole thing was like a reveal.
Yeah. But obviously she's pregnant, so props to her for even doing that. I don't feel like she sang that much. That was the part I like as I was watching. Like the dancers were the show. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I don't really feel like she did that much. Obviously she's incredibly talented. I could care less what any of us possibly think about her. But the dancers seemed to be the show, and she was just kind of there. I also think that they missed an opportunity to bring out, like Jay-Z was there. Mm-hmm. And when they ended on Run This Town, like if he would have came out, like that would have been pretty crazy. I mean, obviously you're not bringing Kanye out at this point, but
No.
Jay-Z's in the house. So why not bring him out? And I feel like a lot of her big songs, even that she did, are collaborations with other artists, and none of them were there. It was just her.
Well, and this is the first Super Bowl that I can remember in recent memory where there weren't other artists who made some sort of an appearance for, a song or a song and a half or whatever. And, I'm not necessarily upset by that, but I was just kind of bored. I was like, no, this is, they're singing and there's some dancing going on. I mean, she's an incredibly talented, uh, human being, but I was bored, wasn't
Yeah.
into it. So
I did think it was. Did you see that Twitter, or it was on Twitter, where that dancer almost fell off the platform?
yes,
And they were like, that would have been
best.
yeah.
Best, I mean, terrible tragedy, obviously, but it would have been the best show I think we've seen in a long time.
I liked it. I have no complaints. Although the backup dancers did look like a bunch of Baymax in the back because they were all in these big white puffy jackets. And
Well, there's also a million of them, and they were the whole thing. Like, I mean, it was
They
like
never
every once
did
in
a
a while,
costume change.
Yeah, every once in a while you saw Rihanna, but it felt like the dancers were the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she didn't even really move around all that much, which
she was pregnant.
she's pregnant. And if she feels anything like what my wife felt like when she was pregnant, the fact that she was up on a stage performing at all, especially on like a 150-foot platform.
She's crazy.
However, I would like to point out that when Bay was pregnant, she performed and did all sorts of crazy stuff. And,
She's the
Just-
queen, though.
she is, just saying.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, we've got other things to talk about, and we will. But first things first, here's our song. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're listening to Divinely Uninspired, podcast by Journey Church Shepherdsville, hosted by Jeremy Willis and me, Rusty Wilson. You can find us online at journeyshepherdsville.com. For questions or comments, email podcast@journeyshepherdsville.com. Maybe we'll feature your question or comment on a future episode. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show. So I have not eaten lunch yet today, and I would like to say that this first story makes me hungry, but it doesn't, because I'm not on board with this. So our first little tidbit of news today: Chick-fil-A is offering a plant-forward, which I don't even know what that means, cauliflower sandwich to their menu, and apparently it's not vegetarian.
Right. So this is the part I don't understand. Like, when I first saw that article, I was like, okay, well, they're giving, something out to the vegans and vegetarians, but it's not even a vegetarian sandwich because it still has milk and eggs, which I know some vegetarians eat milk and eggs, but the vegans don't. So you already got rid of the vegans. It's still going to be breaded and deep fried, which doesn't make it any healthier than the actual chicken sandwich that they serve. Which, if you've studied, like I did Men's Health a couple years ago, and they had this thing like eat this, not that type thing. And like every item on Chick-fil-A's menu is already under 500 calories. And I think this is going to be over 500 calories. So the healthy sandwich is actually going to be worse for you than the sandwiches they already have. So it makes no sense.
I just think that they're succumbing to the pressures of the healthy crowd.
It just seems
But it's
like,
not healthy. That's
Yeah,
the
I
thing,
agree.
is
I
it's
agree.
not healthy.
no, it's not. And it seems like it would be really bad on your stomach. Like,
Yeah.
really bad on your stomach. That's a lot of cauliflower.
Now I have had like a couple of restaurants I've been to do like the cauliflower like buffalo wings where it's like just
Yeah, they're pretty good.
but they're
They
still
are-
they're
they are-
still deep fried,
Yeah.
so they're
Yeah.
not healthy. They're just but they're not bad. But yeah, this I don't get.
I do like to air fry cauliflower and then toss it in some buffalo sauce. It
Yeah.
gives it kind of a healthy.
I don't think that's the same
snack.
thing, though. From what I read, it actually still tastes like chicken.
Yeah,
Correct?
they're trying to make it taste like the chicken
Why?
sandwich.
Okay.
So it's
Eat the chicken.
not gluten free. It is not vegetarian. Do we really need this?
No, well, and like I know they reference like the Impossible Whopper, like which again is it's actually worse for you than a regular Whopper. Like and that's the thing I don't like. If you're going after the health crowd, that's one thing. If you're going after the vegetarian crowd, I guess. But I don't know. It just seems weird. I don't think it's gonna last.
I
You're
don't
not
think
killing
so either.
animals. I think that's gonna be the main argument.
Yeah.
That's why it's vegan, is you aren't killing animals.
But it's not vegan.
It's not.
Or
it's-
but you're not killing animals. There's
You're
no
not,
cruelty.
but everything else on your menu is killing animals.
Yeah,
that's
outside
right.
of the fries.
But-
So right.
This is
I
the
think
one step forward.
This puts Chick-fil-A one step closer to just offering hamburgers. Like
No.
like,
they'll
oh,
never
let's
do that.
expand our menu. And
Well, their whole thing with the cow, they can never offer hamburgers.
well, they could
because-
switch to like pigs.
Yeah.
No.
Eat more cows.
But they already have sausage and bacon on the
Oh, they
breakfast
do.
menu.
They
Oh,
do.
Yeah, they do. You're right.
Well,
and you
then-
can get bacon on any of their sandwiches.
You know what's always really marketable? Cute babies. So you could have babies holding signs that say "Don't eat babies." eat more chicken or
That's-
eat more cows.
Now, I'm not going to say that I wouldn't try this sandwich, but I would go into it fully anticipating not to be like, I'd just rather have you have the chicken sandwich.
I'm not going to pay for this sandwich.
They'll probably do a promo.
Yeah, well, if they do that, I know a couple of owner operators in the Chick-fil-A world, having worked there for 7 years.
You know
So,
what? Maybe you know how like if Chick-fil-A messes up your order, they always give you a free sandwich. Maybe that's why they're doing this. So they can be like, oh, here's a free cauliflower sandwich.
I don't think it's going to make its way here
Is it in the test market? I thought they were doing it
for
nationwide.
certain areas in the United States. I think it's like 4 cities. I could be wrong.
Mm.
I don't know if
But
it's in
did you
that
know that
article.
Chick-fil-A has chicken wings and apparently they're amazing, but you can only get them in like 6 stores?
Well,
In
that's
Louisville?
not
No,
fair.
like in the country. Like everybody raves
Oh,
that their
that
chicken
sounds so
wings
good.
are like some of the best ever.
Hmm.
And they only have them in like 6 different stores.
I'd eat that.
I want to isolate that drop. I'd eat that. And then when we talk about other things, like the next story, for example,
No.
we're talking about fungus, I'd eat that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. It's going to be one of our buttons.
I'm hungry. We
I
haven't had
can't-
lunch yet.
I
Yeah,
can't
I'm
wait.
hungry.
So this next story, we have all in here been watching The Last of Us.
So good.
We have not gotten to talk about it yet on the podcast. And it is an amazing television show. It has broken the video game curse, which just goes to show you that video games can tell amazing stories, and they are. But one of the things that has kind of terrified everybody is the proposition that, like, oh, could this thing, this fungus creating a type of virus, or it's really just a fungal infection. What can we do to stop it? And there's a scene in the show where they're like, no, you can't do anything to stop it. There's no stopping it. Just bomb everything and kill everybody. That's essentially what the show says in a very, very disturbing scene.
And then they don't. And then almost everybody dies.
Yep.
So just
Yep.
bombed them.
Except for The Last of Us.
That's
Roll credits.
That's it. That's it. So here's the good news. A new vaccine against fatal fungi hopes to be first of its kind. Scientists are developing a vaccine they hope could be the first immunization to fight against invasive fungal infections. While it has only been tested on animals so far, the research could eventually pave the way toward a broad spectrum vaccine that could tackle the growing threat of drug-resistant fungi. So I'm hopeful that that this is going to be a thing. I mean, I know it's another vaccine, and there are certain people that don't like vaccines, but watching The Last of Us, if that were like a real thing, I'd want to be immunized against it. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you like the vaccine for the fungi, or do you think that we should just bomb the world when?
Well, I'm sorry. I got to get through all the pop-up ads before I actually read the article. There's like 20 of them.
Just get a pop-up blocker. I never have any issues with any of these websites.
Because your phone is already so corrupted that it just like they're not even targeting you anymore.
That's right. I'm a mole.
Yeah.
The government is watching me closely because they hear me talking about fungi.
I didn't even know this was that big of a threat.
Oh, incredible! It's terrible. They're finding that fungal infections are on the rise. Hospitals have become breeding grounds for fungal infections, and there's not really too much you can do about them. I mean,
How are they catching them?
I'm not sure you want me to explain that on the podcast.
Now you've intrigued people.
Well, I don't know.
I'm going to politely decline.
Come find Rusty after the service on Sunday.
Yeah. No, I mean, fungus grows in.
Yeah, I know how fungus grows.
Oh, okay. Well,
I just meant I didn't realize like
do
how
you,
many like people are dying from this in a year.
I mean, fungal infections are let's see here. Let me bring up that note because it says how they are on the rise. In 2021, for example,
Okay.
drug-resistant fungal infections that were totally resistant to all major classes of drugs were found spreading amongst hospitalized patients in the U.S. Scientists across the world reported an uptick in tricky fungal infections, especially among patients with COVID during the height of the pandemic. So it's
According to WebMD, there are 200,000 U.S. cases per year, and that is on the rise from 150,000 the last time they studied this. So there's a 50,000 people uptake of infections, according to WebMD.
So that's like a 25% increase.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nerve-wracking if they're going to sprout tendrils and
Climate change.
Yeah.
Have you ever
too.
seen that zombie fungus that like attaches itself to like insects and
Well, that's
stuff?
the cordyceps. That's
Yeah,
what
that's
the
what that's
Last of Us is
okay.
based on. So, there is science that says like it's mostly it's highly implausible that that what happened in The Last of Us could actually happen, but not impossible. So you get you get a little mushroom on your pizza, and all of a
That's why you
sudden,
don't eat mushrooms.
oh, they're so good
No,
though.
they're not.
I
They're
like
not good.
mushrooms too.
I love mushrooms.
Same.
Uh,
Rusty and I will be first to go.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so this next story, I had to coach both Penny and Kyle how to pronounce this word because they are
Illiterate.
barbarians who they're plebes that don't know how to read other languages, fancy words. Have you ever heard of ayahuasca?
Spell it. Spell it for the audience.
AYAHUASCA. Ayahuasca.
Yeah, we just talked about it like 2 weeks ago with Aaron Rodgers.
That's true. That's true. We did.
So hopefully they've heard it.
Yeah. So
Our faithful listeners.
that's right. Ayahuasca is a tea that is brewed. It's a psychedelic tea, and we talked about psychedelics a few weeks ago, but it's just not going away. And there is a church out in Utah, I believe. Utah, yes, Utah, and they are. And I use that term "church" in quotations. Clearly, if you were to go to the website of this church, clearly somebody at this church has spent some time in what we actually think of as churches, because their website is like, meet our team, our view our statement of faith, view our beliefs. But it is not a Christian church by any stretch of the
Their
imagination.
name is the Hummingbird Church.
The Hummingbird Church, yes. So they are leading people on ayahuasca experiences as a church. And an ayahuasca experience is a psychedelic experience paired with, are you ready for this? Vomiting and diarrhea. I mean, that
All
sounds,
together now.
that sounds fantastic. A group of people drinking tea, tripping out, and vomiting and diarrheaing everywhere. I don't know about you, but I'm not intrigued by this opportunity.
And they're all tripping right at that moment. So
Correct,
like the vomit
yeah.
and diarrhea is just in
Yeah,
the
and
church.
it's like a guided thing, but they tell you like when you're gonna do it. Like it's all like timed out and stuff. Like they know like roughly like when those things are gonna happen.
I don't
So
think that
in
makes it better.
unison, it
Yeah.
is. It's like their worship. You know, we're all going to do this together.
Yeah.
Like they're guided. Like you can't just. I mean, I guess you could just do it, but like you would probably lose your mind. So like you have to do it like guided, and like they walk you through it. The only reason I know about this is because Aaron Rodgers talked about it in details on the Pat McAfee podcast.
Oh, did he do ayahuasca?
That's what he got. Yeah, that's what he got. Now he's on a darkness retreat. This guy.
A what?
He's on a darkness retreat.
What's that?
He spends 4 days in complete darkness.
And does what?
He goes to he sets and meditates and ponders life for 4
Alright.
days in complete darkness. Like can't even see your hand in front of your face darkness.
Like Mammoth Cave darkness for
Like Mammoth Cave. Like when
Kentucky
they turned the
listeners.
lights out of Mammoth Cave. Yeah.
That's right.
So Aaron Rodgers, but he did this last year, and now this year he's doing a darkness retreat to decide if he wants to continue to play football.
Oh my gosh, this guy.
But on the Pat McAfee, if you're interested, because we obviously none of us have done it or really know that much about it, but he
Speak
goes
for
in,
yourself.
he goes into detail. He goes into detail quite a bit about it on the Pat McAfee podcast.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yep.
So in 2006, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that this church is allowed to use ayahuasca as a sacrament. So it is legal for them to do this, even though the ingredients themselves are illegal. So I think that there's probably a bigger conversation that's happening here about churches kind of pushing the envelope in their exemptions from legal authority.
Right. It's
Well-
a tea leaf, right? Is that what it is? Like leaves?
Yeah.
Just imagine the first person that came across that.
Well, and then to say, check this out.
Right.
Like, well, what happened? So I drank it and I had hallucinations, and then I had explosive vomiting and diarrhea. Do you want to do it with me?
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
heck yes,
but-
I do.
But like, because I guess I'm our resident drug expert. Like people that have hallucinations, like do psychedelic drugs, like there's going to be side effects, but the experience is worth the side effects. You know what I'm saying? So like to them, like even though it sounds so bizarre to us that somebody would do this, and then and I think about it like the same way, like people that drink know they're going to be hungover the next morning,
That's true.
but you still do it because you want that experience of being free or feeling whatever you feel when you drink alcohol. So, obviously a little bit more extreme, but it's
Yeah.
kind of gross. But
Is it addictive?
no,
I don't believe so. I don't.
psychedelics are in the sense of, I don't think you get addicted to psychedelics, the actual drug. You get addicted to the experience.
Mm.
So
what did Aaron Rodgers see in his enlightenment?
I stopped listening to it because he was just
Now I'm curious.
Yeah, but he does go into great detail about it, and he doesn't talk about the total experience, like what he experienced, but he does talk about like the effects of the drugs and stuff.
I mean, if you want to know about what it's like to have, diarrhea and vomiting, I can fill you in on that.
Yes, you could.
My family has been through the ringer the last week and a half. So I don't know. Here, I'm going to read this little clip here to talk about what it says the experience is like. Those who drink ayahuasca report seeing shapes and colors and going on wild, sometimes terrifying journeys that can last hours. In this dreamlike state, some say they encounter dead relatives, friends, and spirits. So I'm not going to be critical of anybody who is seeking a spiritual experience. I'm always cautious to like look at what other people believe and be like, oh, look how crazy is that? Because you could objectively look at what we believe as Christians and say, well, how bizarre they believe that this
I mean, you read like
woman had a baby.
I mean, if and not that this is what they did because we don't know, but like you read like the book of Ezekiel and you're like, sounds like that guy was on a trip.
Yep.
Now, was that a spirit induced trip? But yeah, I mean, the stuff that he sees and experiences, and even John in Revelation, like you're kind of like, man, you're seeing some stuff that I don't think anybody else has ever seen before.
Thank the Lord for this sweet peyote as I see the coming of Christ.
He was exiled on an island, man. Who knows if he got into some bad stuff?
Yeah, he just here's some berries that
He found some ayahuasca.
Yeah.
was or a plane full of cocaine.
Yeah, it's not like any of this stuff's new. It's been
Plane full of
around
cocaine.
forever. It's just now we're aware of it.
All you know is you can't eat red meat before 7 days before you have it. You can't have pork. You can't have red pasta. You can't drink alcohol, and you can't have soda 7 days before their healing ceremony. So we'll allow you to drink soda here.
Yes, we will. During the services. You can double fist it with soda in one hand, communion in the other. We will not judge you. All right. So one more little story before we get into our main discussion here. A new poll has been done by the PRRI, which is the Public Religion Research Institute. So this isn't just like some fly-by-night, poll company or whatever. These are professionals. They did a poll, and the poll shows that a third of Americans are quote unquote Christian nationalists, and most of those people are white evangelicals. A new PRRI survey finds that 10% of Americans are avowed Christian nationalists, and an additional 19% are sympathetic to its ideals. Among white evangelicals, nearly 2/3 are Christian nationalists or sympathizers. So, Jeremy, why don't you define for us real quick what a Christian nationalist is?
Essentially, a Christian nationalist is someone that believes that God ordained America in the sense that it was meant to be a Christian nation. And they believe, we've talked about this before. I mean, several different tenets of the faith, but a lot of them believe like the Declaration of Independence is equally as inspired as like the Bible is, and those type of things. But essentially, most of them, the core value is that they believe that America was a God ordained nation and it was meant to be a Christian nation,
And therefore, it should be declared as
and ruled as a Christian nation.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So the numbers are that's kind of a concerning number that many people believe that.
Yeah, I think what concerned me was as I read the article. I mean, we've talked about Christian nationalism before, and so if you want to know our exact feelings on that, you can listen to those podcasts. I'm sure we can tag those. But what was interesting was when they actually did like the results, like the overwhelming majority of people that are either adherents or what was the word they used? Sympathizers. When you go down on that study and it says the people that actually attend church, those numbers are significantly smaller. And that was what was interesting to me was you have these, people that wanted to be a Christian nationalist. So a country ruled by Christian faith and beliefs and ideas and ideologies, yet they don't go to church. And to me that's very telling. I think that you have these people that say it should be this way, everybody should operate in this way, but we're not actually going to go and do that.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Well, there was just a poll that, or not, I guess it was a graph. There's a guy named Ryan Burge, and he's a statistician, and he released a graph that he put together based on polling data that said liberal people. Okay, so we're going to define that. Left-leaning politically people born between the years of 1975 and 1989 are actually more likely to attend religious services weekly in 2021. And at the same time that this was being measured, now we're 2 years out from that, but the data still holds, weekly attendance has noticeably dropped for conservative leaning people born between 1955 and 1984. So in other words, your Gen Xers and your millennials who tend to lean politically to the left are more likely to attend your weekly services at church than your conservative leaning baby boomers and Gen Xers, which I find fascinating.
I think the danger of it is, obviously we've talked about this before, so I don't want to beat the dead horse, but I think that part of it for me is it's so hard to define what it is sometimes that people get caught up in it. Because when you hear it on the surface, even to me, it's like, yeah, we should be a country that has Christian values, because Christian values are about loving your neighbor and taking care of the people that need a hand, and forgiving people and all of these things. And so like that's part of it, is that you go into it and you think, yeah, we should be a Christian nation, until you see how far they're willing to take it, and how that so many of the people that are, to me, the voices, and I'm not going to name names, but you can just do a quick Google search and they'll pop up, that are saying things that are so un-Christ-like that it just, and so I think that's where people get messed up, is that it sounds nice. Yes, I do think I think every country would be a better country if it was ran based on Christian principles and values. But to say that in order for our country to exist, it has to be Christians leading it. It has to be people that do that. And the dogmatic way in which they make statements, to me, is just the concerning part about it. So
Has Christian nationalism been around? Like, has that been around for a long time?
yeah, it's been called different things, but
Okay.
very similar to like the moral majority and stuff like that in the late 80s and all that stuff.
And it hasn't only existed in America
No,
either.
yeah.
It's existed in lots of different nations. We're seeing it happen in Brazil right now. It happened in different periods of time in Europe, and so it's not an American phenomenon.
And I think the way that when I talk to people, I was actually talking to somebody about this recently, because they were very adamant that we needed to be a Christian nation. And I said, okay, so I said, let's play this out in entirety. How do you feel about countries that are Muslim states? And they were like, well, I don't like that. And I'm like, well, that's what you're asking. You're asking that our country becomes the Christian state, like that. So anybody that's not a Muslim can be persecuted openly, and not that we would get to that extreme, but it's the same concept, like that you are a country, that this is your national religion. This is your stated religion. And it doesn't just exist in the churches and the synagogues, it exists everywhere, And so I think that's the danger of how far that can go, because we obviously see, and it's not just Muslims, because I don't know if we have Muslims listen, but there's Hinduistic states and Buddhist. They're all of them, and it's just when you take that religion and force it and make it have to be that, we've seen it become very dangerous.
Yeah. So the encouraging thing is that by a ratio of 2 to 1, Americans reject that we should have a Christian nationalist worldview. And it's just, I mean, we've said it before, it's just not Christian.
Well, and there's, I mean,
Right.
the Bible over and over again, there's no Christian nations. There's a kingdom, and, nations come and go. I mean, and so that's part of it too, is that, we want to believe that what Jesus is doing is bigger than a country, and one country's ideologies. And so, no, I mean, I think the world would be better if people actually did what Jesus said and the world was a more Christian place. But Christian nationalism to me is knocking on that door of scary.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. So we're going to do a real quick edition of Ask Kyle. Kyle, how do we fix this problem? How do we fix people wanting to be Christian nationalists, and how do we stop it from happening?
Great question. I think that's a very worthwhile question. I think actually what it boils down to is, what are we reinforcing? Like, are we reinforcing, privilege and, like servanthood or service to a country or to a person? And that person would have to be Jesus as well. So it's simple as that.
yeah.
Problem solved, people.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
I'll be your new leader of our Christian nation. I'll start it.
No.
No, please don't.
You want to be the new leader of the Christian nation. So you're a Christian nationalist, is what you're telling me?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have been
'Cause
converted.
if you want to be the leader of the
It's
Christian
revival.
nation, okay.
Yeah. Well, you just brought
planned
up,
it. I planned
okay,
it.
well, you're not supposed to say that on the podcast. It's supposed to all
Oh,
come
okay.
across as organic and the Holy Spirit moving, which is exactly what we're going to ask Jeremy about. So if you are a Twitter follower, or, I'm sure it's made the rounds on Facebook and other functions of social media, and you probably know somebody who has gone and experienced what is happening down there in person, because thousands of people have at this point. But for the past week, and it is still going on, I just checked before we started, Asbury University, which is a private Christian college in Wilmore, Kentucky, has been experiencing what many people are calling a revival. And I was talking to my wife about what was going on, and she was like, "What does that word even really mean? Like, I don't explain what that word means." And so I thought, well, what a great question, because I'm sure lots of people have that. So we're going to find out what Jeremy thinks. So, Jeremy, what does the term mean? And what do you think about what is taking place in Wilmore? Is it a revival? So let's hear.
What does Jeremy think?
I think the term revival is a hard one to define. And the reason it's hard to define, I think, is because of what we've made it versus what it probably originally was. So, it comes from the Great Awakening in the 1700s, like the idea of revive. I mean, and you can break the word down and pretty much kind of pick apart what it means. It's to revive something. So it's where something was dead or not growing or not doing well, and then it gets revived and it comes back to life, and there's all these byproducts of it happening. So a revival is simply where something is either dying or dead, and in this case with faith, and then it's revived, and now stuff happens. There's been several of them: the Great Awakening, the Second Great Awakening, the Azuz, and what's it? Azusa Street
Revival.
in the 1900s. There's been several of them, but then I think where it gets confusing is we've also all grown up in the world where there's tent revivals and churches hold revivals. So, like the Great Awakening, if you study it, it came out of nowhere. It really was it was one guy, Jonathan Edwards,
Yeah.
and he's preaching, and 3 people get saved the first day. And one of them happens to be if you can say this, the town prostitute. And they didn't even want to say that she had gotten saved because they were afraid that everybody would think that he was a phony. But then everybody is so moved that she came to Christ that it ends up blowing up and all this stuff. So you can study revivals. I don't have to go through all the history, but essentially it's where something's dead, something happens. It's usually the ones we've seen that have been effective are unplanned. It just kind of happens. There's a great byproduct of it. And that's why I've always thought it's interesting that churches plan revivals, because I'm well, historically you don't really plan them. They just kind of happen. So that's kind of a revival. I mean, it is what it is. It's where something is dead or dying, and there's this great, awakening, so to speak, and things come to life, not only in the event, but more importantly, and I think this is the part with Wilmore I'm interested in, what comes out of it. What's the great revivals that we've seen have been defined not only by what happened in the moment where they're actually in revival, so to speak, but all of the things that came out of it. Because if you look at the Great Awakening, it spread. I mean, if you look at the Azus, I mean, it's spread, and so most of these revivals we've studied, it's not just what happens in those 20 days or 28 days, or with Wilmore, who knows how long this is going to go on. It's more defined by what happens after, and we're not there yet because it's still going on. So we don't know what's going to happen and the impact it's going to make. So now, is this a revival? I mean, honestly, I can't speak to that because I haven't been there yet. I mean, so I don't know. And to be honest with you, I've never been a part of what I would consider a real revival. So it's kind of hard to even say, like, is this, I mean, most of the great revivals were before our time, And so, I don't know. I try not to cast judgment on these things because I haven't been to it. I know people that have been to it and have talked about how powerful it is. I've even known some people that went into it as skeptics to try to pick it apart and have said that, they left with a different spirit than they walked in with. And so, who knows?
So let me ask you, what kind of skepticism? Because I'm naturally a skeptical person myself, and so when I first started seeing this, it's like, okay, uh, what what are they? Are they? How are they manipulating
Yeah.
this from an emotional standpoint?
I actually do want to go. Like I've even thought about trying to go tomorrow. I mean, if it lasts till then. Um, I think the skepticism is based on a couple things. It's college students who are emotionally drawn to several things. Asbury and Lee University and Camelsville and Anderson, where it's spread to, are all Christian universities. So this started in a mandatory chapel you have to attend. So it wasn't like it's University of Kentucky or U of L or a secular school where now all of these people are coming to Christ. Like this started on a Christian university. Now I'm not saying that to say is it or isn't. That's just the facts. It started on a Christian university. I actually this morning, since we were talking about, listened to the message from the guy that he didn't start it because he had no idea what was going to happen, but did the chapel message that morning. It was a perfectly fine message. It wasn't anything spectacular, and he didn't even say like, hey, let's stay here and start a revival. So that's the interesting thing to me is like his message just kind of ended. Like when I get done preaching, he walks off the stage and people just didn't leave, and so, that's kind of an interesting thing. But I say that to say that the skepticism is if you watch it, the live feed, I mean, it seems like just a big worship service. Like, and you got college kids, that are on a college campus. It's a Christian university. They're singing like, popular songs. I'm hearing a lot of like Hill, and nothing against them, but a lot of Hillsong songs, a lot of Bethel songs. I mean, these are powerful, emotional songs. What is intriguing to me is that there's no like, it's not like you're listening to like these big name speakers that you expect to draw big crowds, most of the testimonies I've heard, like as I had, because you can actually go and watch the live feed of it. A couple of there was a preacher on today that preached for 30 minutes and he spoke in his native tongue, Swahili. I think is what they said it was. So for 30 minutes, nobody understood what he was saying. And then it ended and kids just went crazy. Like it was like the best sermon they've ever heard. And I was like, well, that's interesting, because it wasn't like Andy Stanley just gave this like message that you're just like, oh my gosh, how could we not be moved by that? It was just some guy like talking and, so, I mean, I think as I even wanted to be skeptical of it because, but something's happened and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's revival or not. Because again, I think revival is defined by what happens afterwards, not necessarily what's happening in the moment. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, and I know that, mentioned the songs they were using and the reports that I'm seeing are saying that there's no fancy lights or fog machines, or even like a lot of the music is just a piano and a guitar player. It's not,
and they're not even putting the lyrics up.
Yeah.
Like they're sheep. You can actually see it if you go on the live feed. There's like, and it's been different musicians because I've been kind of scrolling through it to see like, it's different musicians just from the campus, from other college campuses, from churches, I haven't watched the whole thing because obviously it's been going on for 6 days now and I can't watch everything, but all of the speakers that I've seen, like I've never heard of them. Most of them aren't even pastors. They're just people from churches or administrators in the university or students. So now I will say this, and again, this is not saying it's not a revival because I don't feel like I can speak into it unless I see it firsthand, and I can't speak into it till we see the byproduct of it because it may be a great revival. But it did start on a college campus, and this is not the first one that they've had. They had another one in 1970. And so again, that's not me discrediting what's happening. That's just the facts is that this isn't the first time that Asbury has started a quote unquote revival. The 1970 revival, very similar if you study it to what's going on right now. Um, and I tried to look into it as best as I could. I didn't see that there was a lot of like national like change because of that revival. It was just kind of like very similar to what they're doing. It was, but like I said, I know people that I have seen that I know personally that have gone to it that went in as skeptics and walked out and said that, you know, they're not ready to call it a revival yet necessarily, but they did say that like they felt the spirit there. Like it was, they went in with one attitude and walked out with another one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So I want to say something about the worship music because we had mentioned that it's not like there's not big lights, a show. There's not really a whole lot of band. Um, when the energy in the room is right, when everyone is doing exactly like the same thing, there creates this euphoric like energy. Like the Holy Spirit is there. You can really feel it because if you were to go like to Southeast, to, the big one and worship, it's like some people are participating and some people are not. But when you go to like a Hillsong concert, everyone is there to worship together, and it creates that atmosphere of like, I don't want this to end.
mhm.
And I think that that's what's happened too, is that regardless of whatever they have going on the platform or the stage at the moment, it's about everyone doing exactly the same thing. And I would love to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think with things like Hillsong concerts, and it feels so weird calling
I
a
know a concert.
worship session together a concert.
Right.
But I mean, they are concerts. They have lighting shows that go along with it. They have fog machines, and they know how to move people through artistic expression, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I think that God gave us art as a way to express worship to Him. I think that emotional manipulation to garner a response from people is something that we have to be careful of. And I mean, like jokingly, when I was a student pastor, we would kid around that at camp or whatever, like, oh well, we need to make them cry tonight. Like I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, I was part of
Yeah.
those planning meetings. Like this
yeah,
is the decision night,
yeah. So
I think one of the things that one of the guys I talked to that said was interesting to me was about the music. So two things. Number one is when the room is full, it always feels like the spirit's there. I mean,
Mhm.
even here at Journey, we've had Sundays where the worship set was great, like the band did great, but the room was empty and it felt like like we've even said like there was no energy in the room. Well, that's because there was nobody here, half the
Right.
time. I mean, people are here, but not as big of a crowd as we expected. But when the room's full, there's always energy,
Mhm.
spirits moving. So that could be part of what's going on. But one of the comments they made that I thought was amazing was they said, and this is somebody went in kind of skeptical. They said that what was amazing was they stayed for several hours and they said they left and they said, when you go to church, you're walking in, there's a beginning and there's an end. And he said what was amazing was when I got there, I already knew it was going on. And when I left, I knew it was going to continue to go on. And he was like, I got out of it what I needed. And then, so like, but like, it wasn't, it doesn't make sense. Like, he knew it had been going on before I got there and it was going to keep going on after I got there. And he said, that's like a different energy when you feel that. Like a concert, even like a Hillsong concert, as powerful as it may be, there's a beginning and an end. And you're there for both of those things. To walk into something that he said is almost bigger than you because it wasn't even about you. Like nobody even knows you're there, like you're just, we could all four like get in our car right now and go to it. Other than we tell people, nobody would even know we were there, and so like to be a part of that, he said was just very interesting.
And isn't that what we always like really want in our faith is more than just that Sunday morning, that
Right.
feeling that this is a continuing thing every day of our lives.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome.
So no, so I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't care if you use the word revival. Like I said, I think the words got almost so corrupted because now it's just, bringing something to life that was dead. And now churches playing revivals, which again, I think is weird. And, and there's been a history of misuse of that term with like tent revivals and all that stuff. So yeah, it might be a revival. I think will be interesting is what is the long-term effect of this, if there's any. And I think that will be defined what's really going on. And I think that's also something interesting too. And this is just me being, we have a conversation about this. Even the term revival to me is interesting because it's assuming that something was dead. So you have to have a revival because God wasn't moving. And so and what I found was interesting is most of the great revivals are in America. They're not in other places. Now, there's things happening that would be termed probably revivals in other parts of the world, but if you just Google revival, almost everything you're going to see is happening in America. And so that's interesting even to me in that sense of, in light of what we just talked about with Christian nationalism and all this stuff. Revival, and Jonathan Edwards' case, like, I mean, it kind of was dead, for the most part when he steps onto the scene. But I wouldn't say that Christianity's dead here. So I don't know. That's not me saying again that this isn't happening. That's just an observation. Is that revival typically happens when something's dying, or not moving, and so do we believe that God's not moving, and that's why we need revival?
Yeah, but not necessarily as a whole, but as
Right.
a personal journey of faith. Like, yeah, I mean, I really do hope that this moment at this college, it revives their faith in them
Yeah.
and does great things. I mean, I would consider this a revival. I mean, that's the whole point, right? A revival of faith. Like that's why they do the tent revivals and all that.
Right.
Not necessarily as a whole, but as a personal journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that this is genuine work of the Spirit, and I think when I was talking to my wife about it, I said, I think that whatever it is, something significant is happening for a group of people.
Right.
That doesn't mean that there's not somebody in the room who is figuring out a way to use this to, their advantage. I just kind of the thing that I said to her, because she's also a skeptic, was, maybe there is a kid who thinks, I can use this to help my brand as a worship pastor, or,
Right.
who knows? But clearly something is happening. And I think we're kind of in that stage of what First John says of like testing the spirits, making sure that this is of God. And it appears to be based on almost all the accounts that I have heard, but once like Jeremy said, having not been there.
Well, and I think one thing that I will make an observation about is, and this is more maybe just the state of where we are, is, you know, I'm just this way. If I go, which I am leaning towards going, but I'm not telling anybody when I'm going, and I'm definitely not going to post it on social media that I'm there. Um, if it's a work of God, I want to experience it, not have a bunch of people like it that I was there. Now, I think even the people that have attended that I've known, I think the question I've asked them is, well, what changed in you? Like if it was a revival, even if you're not getting saved, something should be happening in that place. And a few of them have had good answers, and a couple of them I'm more, I hope it doesn't become one of these things where I think it started. I honestly do believe it started to something very genuine. Like I think after listening to that guy's message, and even knowing we actually have a couple students that attend Journey that go to Asbury, and I've been texting with some of them. Um, and they're just talking about how unreal it is, and so like good for them, but also those people aren't posting about it, like they're just experiencing it, and so I think that would be something interesting too, is just, like you said, are we making, okay, you went, did you go just because it was a phenomenon, or did you go because you actually are going to change because you were there?
Yeah.
And I think that again marks revival for me. So
Oh, well, thank you, Jeremy. That is what Jeremy thought.
That's what Jeremy thought.
Now, we're still on the topic of revival, but this is going to be a little bit of a different type of revival, as our kind of, I've in my notes, I call the last thing we talk about last call. And so I want to talk about real quickly. So the dodo bird, right? We all know the dodo bird. Well, we don't know them
Big
because
fan.
they've been extinct for quite some time. But there is a group who is hoping to de-extinct the dodo bird, and they just received a $150 million grant in funding to help bring back the dodo bird. So I don't really care about the story. What I care about is if you could bring back any one species that has gone extinct, which would it be? And I know that like the typical answer would be dinosaurs. So if you're going to say that, that's fine. But which one? Because there are lots of them, and you just can't say all of them.
well, I think it's tricky because we've talked about this before. Like, I'm one of these people. I think dinosaurs existed. I don't think all the dinosaurs existed. Like we've talked about, like they make. You can go to Smithsonian. So just they'll make an entire dinosaur based off of a femur bone. And so you'll even see on the graph like this one yellow bone is the bone they found, and now we have a triceratops. And so I'm like, okay. So you gotta be careful with dinosaurs because it's like, yeah, did all of those even really exist? We don't even know.
So is this like a Jurassic Park moment though? Like, did they get it from like the amber of a
I don't know
mosquito?
where
Like,
that.
what
So
does that mean?
I read that there was some specimen that contained enough DNA that they could try and complete the genome.
And how long has it been gone?
Well, it's been gone like 10 years or something.
Huh.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Dodo bird was still
Revive
around in
that,
the 80s.
So I guess like with the dodo bird, I don't remember, how did it go extinct? Like, how did we not, like when there was only 100 left, be
Right.
like, you know what, maybe we
Exactly.
should do something.
Yeah, so it says here the dodo spent a blissful few million years living isolated on the tropical island of Mauritius. Its pigeon ancestor traveled there and set up shop on the forest floor, adapting over time, become a flightless bird, and lived it up free from predators among the giant tortoises and giant skinks. I don't know what a skink is. But the utopia came crashing down, however, when humans arrived with a few extra invasive species in tow. Not used to having predators to fear, the dodos were an easy catch and eventually were hunted into extinction.
Natural selection.
Yeah.
See ya.
So, as a Kansas Jayhawks fan, and our Jayhawk is based off of the dodo, I think it's a great story for us as a college because not only do we have the largest comeback in national championship history.
How did you let it go extinct if it's your school's?
You
yeah.
know, that's semantics.
Yeah, how dare
We're
you.
not worried about
And
it.
I'm looking at the Jayhawk
It's based
logo.
off a dodo.
It is not. I'm
But
looking
it
at a
is.
dodo bird right here.
It is.
And this is a real live dodo bird.
I just don't understand if
From the Creation
if you all
Museum.
love it so much, how did you let it go extinct?
Because we were worried about basketball.
Yeah.
So
Clearly.
is that what you're bringing back?
So,
Lame.
sorry. Yeah.
I mean,
it's for the story.
it's his choice, you know. It's
I mean,
But again,
I'm sorry.
choice, but
that
it's
didn't really
his choice.
answer my question. Like when we got down to 100, how did we not like take those 100 birds and like?
I think the real question is
put
why
'em
didn't
somewhere.
you do anything about it?
I was 10 years ago.
See?
Yeah, it was
Y'all played
actually
a
like 200 years
No,
ago.
I didn't because I didn't go to that island and bring those invasive species.
I was
Or
kidding
hunt
when I
them.
said it was the 80s. It was just all kinds of terrible things happened in the 80s.
It was in the 80s.
No, it wasn't really in the 80s. It
1800s.
was in the it was a
80s.
long time ago. It was
The
like
dodo birds.
250 years ago. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So
it's past.
that's how we didn't have a count on them because there was nobody counting them.
So we'll have the
I
largest
mean, there's probably
comeback in
one
national
guy-
championship history.
There's probably one guy or one girl that's like, we should stop killing the dodo bird.
So,
They sound like Jerry Seinfeld.
Kansas named their bird after a bird that was
No,
already
we're
extinct?
named after because this is Kansas history.
Oh, but okay, I don't care. All right.
The dodo bird. I'm okay. The Jayhawk and the dodo bird look
So-
nothing alike.
It was the Jayhawkers versus the Bushwhackers. This is like John Brown, like slave state. Missouri was a slave state. Kansas wasn't. The Jayhawkers would invade Lawrence, and that's how you get the name Jayhawk. But in the, I don't know.
I didn't follow any of that.
That's
yeah,
okay.
that has nothing to do with dodo bird though.
Seventh grade
So you would
Kansas
bring back
history was rough.
you would bring back the dodo.
You would
Got
bring
it.
back
Sure.
a bird that was so dumb it just allowed itself to go extinct.
Yep.
That has become a
It's a lot like me.
pejorative for people. You dodo. That's my
Our
insult of choice.
personalities.
So I would bring back one of two animals. I would bring back a pterodactyl because I think it would be awesome just to be walking around and pterodactyls just swoop down and like take people away, and then just it would be kind of cool. And you just always be like, pterodactyls. Oh no! And then the other one would be the saber-toothed tiger, just because I think they look cool.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is
Yeah.
a good one.
I think they look cool.
What about you, Penny?
I would say the woolly mammoth and the woolly.
Because you
Rhino.
watched Ice Age, right?
It's amazing. They're cool looking.
The woolly
And they're-
rhino is pretty cool.
Yeah, like we could bring back both of them.
Would they sound like Ray Romano?
Yes.
Hey, I'm Ray Romano. Hey.
Yeah.
I would bring back the megalodon because I like sharks, and it's the coolest shark because it's basically a great white that's the size.
So here's my question. So and I'm not trying to get into a conversation about this. How did the megalodon go extinct? Because obviously other ocean animals did not go extinct, whether there was a comet that destroyed everything or not, because a lot of them are obviously, most of what we call are the descendants of the dinosaurs live in the ocean. So how did the megalodon go extinct if it was so awesome?
yeah, it's really sad
get
actually.
knocked out by the blue whale, the dorsal?
It was cancer.
Oh, okay.
Dorsal fin cancer.
or was it a fungus?
It could have been.
Oh, maybe.
It could have been a fungus. Megalodon was taken down by a fungus. A megalodon clicker. Have that
sounds
in your
terrifying.
dreams tonight.
That's actually what Moby Dick is about, right?
A megalodon.
We thought it was a whale, but it wasn't.
It was just a megalodon clicker.
Yep.
Well, that is. I'm imagining everybody listens to this as they're falling to sleep.
Oh, all we got to do is do an episode of College Kansas history, and we'll.
Ooh,
shots
I'll pull out the
fired.
book. I'll read it just word for word.
I like it. Well, that is our show for the day. Real quick, what's happening here at Journey? We have a short-term mission trip to Western Kentucky coming up March 20th through the 24th. You can sign up for that on the Journey app. Jeremy is going to be leading a 3-week course of What is Class? What is the Bible? Those start in March. Specifically, they are March Sundays. Where's my calendar? March 12th, March 19th, and March 26th. You can find information about that on the app. On Saturday, February 25th, we are having a men's breakfast here at the church at 8:30. Guess where you can find that? On the app. And Kyle, you want to talk about the winter retreat for a minute?
Yeah, winter retreat is happening in just a couple of weeks, but our deadline to sign up is actually on the 20th. So that's next Monday. It is $60 a student to go. You'll sign up through their website. That's White Mills Christian Camp. Our code is Journey Winter, but it's going to be a fantastic weekend. We've brought in a speaker, an incredible worship band. We are expecting students to encounter a God that is fantastic, and they're going to learn about freedom in Christ.
And there's going to be revival.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, just keep them there.
We'll see where the Spirit leads.
Just like the college kids, are they trying to get out of class?
If I was,
what if that's really what's going on?
Right.
Like everybody,
as a Bible college kid, I'm not upset if I'm not having class.
Yeah. I was always upset.
Are those excused absences? Well, the Holy Spirit told me I had to be here.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's like when the Holy Spirit tells you that you're not
break up with
supposed
that
to.
girl?
Well, but you tell her that, and then she says, "Well, the Holy Spirit told me that we were supposed to get married. So where's my ring?"
Let's go to Asbury and figure it out.
That's right.
But no, I won't keep your kids at a camp. Sorry, safety. You know, like if there's revival.
Oh, if there's revival, like you're leaving.
Like parents have the authority here.
Okay. Well, good for you. That's our show. We will see you again soon.